Welcome to the Wild Physio podcast with your hosts, Andrew Wild and Chaz. How are you, mate?
Good mate, how are you?
Very well. Today, it's all about you. And first question I got for you. How does one lose weight?
Golden question, isn't it? So I guess if you really want to break it down, because you can tell we've already gone through behavior change stuff, gone through goal setting, we've gone through strategies to put in place to help with weight loss. But if we really just want to break it down, losing weight is being in a lower calorie than like less calories coming in than going out. So you're burning more energy than you're consuming. Thus, you're like depleting your energy reserves, aka fat stores in your body, which is then gonna make you lose weight. I mean, there's like your weight does fluctuate time to time from water weight, things that aren't fat mass. Yes, throughout the day, sodium content in foods, how much water you've had that day, whatever it is. But you're talking about weight loss in terms of fat loss and just consistent and continual weight loss. It's being a low, like a calorie deficit, which is kind of the energy balance being outweighed. So your expenditure is higher than what you're consuming from food. And that's really what it breaks it down to into.
Yeah, so a common question I get is, can I lose weight eating junk food or not eating really well or nutrient dense food? Have you
Mhm.
got an answer to that?
You sure can. So your body doesn't know what it's coming from. It just breaks down to energy no matter what. So the macronutrients being protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And as we've gone through this before, about 9 calories per gram of fat and 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates and protein. And that makes up the energy you consume throughout the day. And it doesn't matter if it's coming from Pop Tarts or ice cream or coming from protein shakes or granola bowls or nutrition, like great nutritious foods that are broken down into those three macronutrients, which thus gives you energy. So your body doesn't know, and we've spoken this before also. I don't know, it was it Pop Tarts someone ate, or no, it was Twinkies someone ate for a set amount of time duration, and he lost a great amount of weight because he was in a deficit, and it was still from a terribly nutritious food, low in nutrients, low in micronutrients, low in fiber, all those things that make you feel great and help with other things. But if we're talking about weight loss today, it doesn't matter what it comes from.
That is not the recommendation, though, to go out and eat Twinkies, no doubt, or go and just eat pizza or whatever it is. There's been several people over the years do, I suppose, experiments on themselves, and they'd go into a deficit and only eat Twinkies or only eat pizza, and it's just to show that it's all about calories in, calories out. The interesting thing was with the Dr. Mark Hub one with the Twinkies, they did blood work at the start and at the end, and his blood work actually got better because of the deficit. However, you wouldn't continue to do that long term because of the micronutrient and vitamin deficits they would have had from just only eating Twinkies.
Mhm. And it would have plateaued at some point. It was a short
Exactly.
duration of time. It's a screenshot, it's a snapshot of the progress you can make short term. But it's the same as like those really highly restrictive diets from whatever you're seeing online. It's a snapshot of the weight you drop that period of time. Good luck trying to be in that deficit long term. You can be starving. There's no fiber. It's such low volume. There's still a lot of calories per volume in Twinkies. You're probably eating barely anything during the day. So you can lose weight no matter what if you're doing that way. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the 80/20 rule is a good one. And we've mentioned this on the podcast before. 80% of the time you're trying to fill your diet with nutrient dense foods, and 20% of the time you can have something that is, I suppose, fun, that isn't necessarily deemed nutrient dense. So something that's prepackaged, like some chips here and there, or some ice cream here and there, or something like that, is okay in moderation.
yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes back to the sustainable part as well. We can't be perfect all the time because you're just going to fall off the wagon. Kind of goes back to the goal setting and things like that we've also spoke about before last podcast.
And when we're talking about calories in versus calories out, the calories out equation is reasonably complex.
Hmm.
So let's dive into what total daily energy expenditure means and what contributes to total daily energy expenditure, or short is TDEE. There's four components that do contribute to TDEE.
Yeah. So we'll go through the four and then we can kind of talk about what one or each of them contribute to in terms of what it looks like in a day, and then kind of go further into detail from there. So first one being BMR, so basal metabolic rate. So we can I'll name all four first. So then the thermic effect of food, TEF, and then EAT, so exercise activity thermogenesis, and then NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And then if you start with BMR, so basic metabolic rate, it's the energy your body uses to stay alive. So it's breathing, heart function, brain activity, organ function. What your body just uses for energy is just to stay alive, regardless of movement, eating food, whatever it is.
I
And
think
then,
I think a good sort of analogy I use for people when I'm explaining BMR to them is your BMR's based off your height, your weight, your age, and your sex.
mhm,
And it's similar to if you were in a coma or you literally didn't move all day.
yeah, exactly. And when I'm working clinically in a hospital and I'm working in ICU, and they're doing nothing but fighting an infection, whatever the reason they're coming in, we still need to calculate the tube feed of what they're having. It's regular, like rather pretty high still, because of the infection or just because of the big body size, wherever it is. So it definitely body does require nutrients if you're not moving or anything else as well.
And this is another reason why a really big guy that's 100 kilos will invariably have to eat more than a woman who's 55 kilos because they're just bigger. They burn more calories at rest. They've got a bigger frame. Everything's working harder because there's just so much mass.
Yeah,
So this is another reason why, yeah, I have this conversation a lot with women. You can't, if you're considerably smaller than your husband or your partner, you can't get away with eating the same amount of food if you want to maintain your body weight as your partner if he's 30 or 40 kilos heavier.
exactly. Yeah. That's just how the body works. As it is. And then we kind of go into the thermic effect of food. So, I guess the energy your body uses to digest, absorb, and process the food. So, and this is general. So, 20 to 30% of the protein is used for digestion, processing, and absorption. So, protein is the highest, and then carbohydrates 5 to 10%, and then fat being 0 to 3%, probably 1 to 2 to 3%. And I guess if you break this down easier, so 100, if you ate 100 calories of protein, about 20 to 30 of these calories are going to be used for processing it. I know you guys are probably going, "Oh my God, didn't know about this." I'm just going to eat only protein. That's also not a good recommendation. And this doesn't make fat like protein a fat loss hack. And it's really it's such a small thing in kind of yeah, day to day. And like we said, your like basal metabolic rates will be way higher than that, than how much protein you have. But it's just contribution to what you have every day.
And obviously, these four components make up 100% of your TDEE. Your BMR is roughly going to be 60 to 70% of the TDEE.
Mhm.
Now, if we're talking thermic effect of food, the TEF, what percentage of the TDEE typically is thermic effect of food?
So it's obviously going to range from, like we said, what you're consuming, but it's around 10%.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we kind of go into eat. So exercise, like it stands for exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's your intentional expenditure. So gym training, running, sports, rehab, whatever it is, kind of the movement you do intentionally throughout the day. And I think this is where most people try and control it most. They're really trying, okay, weight loss. I'm really just going to focus on doing all this activity intentionally, while we could be looking at the other whole three groups as well, to kind of consider. And then obviously non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So it kind of stands for like kind of walking around at work, standing, housework, errands, playing with the kids, fidgeting, things like that. There's things you don't really recognize you do throughout the day, but it actually burns a fair bit as well, throughout the day.
And what percentage does exercise contribute to TDEE?
So it obviously ranges a lot from marathon runners, obviously doing a lot more. But I'd say 15, 10%, even lower, can be lower also as well for people that.
Yeah, I typically put it this way for most people that are general pop, exercise will probably contribute roughly 5 to 10% for most people. Maximum would be 15 if they're an elite athlete and they're doing a lot of exercise. Imagine they're an elite swimmer or something like that, or a marathon runner. And most people are in the 5 to 10%.
Agreed.
Now, when it comes to the percentage of non-exercise activity thermogenesis or NEAT that contributes to your TDEE,
It's got to also range, like I said, depending on do we do for work, things like that. But it'd probably around like 20 to 30%. I think
yeah,
that's
that's exactly the recommendation or the numbers that I give people as well. They can drop if they're not doing much non-exercise activity down to 15%, 15 to 30%, but it's very modifiable. And I think that is really powerful. And we'll put up a post on Wild Physio Instagram about TDEE and what contributes to it. And you'll see quickly that the non-exercise activity has the most potential for change
right.
because exercise activity just does not contribute that much to your total daily energy expenditure, and it's less than your non-exercise activity. So then you have more of a modifiable factor to consider when we're thinking, all right, what are we going to focus on? Yeah, non-exercise activity is one of the best things we could possibly focus on. Can you
Mhm.
talk to that and also the difference between how many calories we're burning, say, running versus walking or something like that?
Mhm. Yeah, and one point I really want to put across here as well, and I've noticed this a lot once I've kind of focused more on my intentional kind of what my goals are in terms of training. Focus on that in terms of not being calorie burning, but what the actual purposes is, and then the rest coming from your non activity thermogenesis as well. So, and this kind of shows that like if you're just trying to burn as much as possible and you're going to do these crazy runs and like these excessive walks and whatever it is, it's just going to be so fatiguing and it's not specific to what your goals are going to be. Like if it's weight loss, but you kind of also want to look good from the weight loss, you're better off using that intentional exercise to be really hard strength resistance training. That's kind of the 3 to 4, whatever it is, kind of 3 times a week. And you're really just knuckling down and just your goal is to kind of maintain or gain muscle during that session. And then you're kind of looking elsewhere for that weight loss. Instead of just going all these crazy runs, you're so fatigued, and then your resistance training is terrible. So you're not really kind of adapting to your specific intentional training sessions. But to answer your question with kind of the intentional kind of exercise and burning, it ranges also depending on the size and things like that. But I'm gonna say like your resistance training session, and this will all be about an hour. I'm gonna calculate. Like maybe 150 to 300 calories from resistance training, and you break that down to how easy you could eat that, like that.
Yep.
So there's no point doing an extra half an hour and really just kind of burning yourself out, trying to burn another 90 calories or whatever it is. Like, there's no point doing that. And then a walk, so obviously ranges. This is all averages on pace and average size, but 300 to 400 calories in an hour walk. Could be a bit higher depending on if it's really intentional. You're really going on an incline and you're going a bit quicker. And then average run could be like 600, 800, even to 1,000 potentially. If you're like a really like pushing the pace and you're going uphill and you're doing these crazy like going on a trail or something, going up and down all the time, using a lot more of your muscles and fatiguing yourself, it could be up to 1,000. But yeah, I'd say 600 to 800. Do those measurements kind of seem right to you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing to take from this is you just don't burn that many calories in an exercise session and you don't burn as many as you think. And I think there's this notion out there that and I hate those posts where it's like someone's posted them eating a donut and then they'll say, I need to do this amount of exercise to burn off the donut. I really don't love that. It just creates this notion that we can go out and over exercise to the point where we burn so many calories that we can get away with eating whatever. But it just takes so long to burn a lot of calories. Even, you and I about 90 kilos, you and I go and exercise in the gym for an hour. Yeah, we might only burn 250 calories, but we can smash a burger that's 3 times that in terms of calories in 30 seconds.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
focusing on the diet when it comes to a weight loss journey is really, really important. And you can't out exercise a bad diet.
Of
It's just
course.
not going to happen. And to segue off that, focusing on your non-exercise activity is just so important because I see this a lot where over the years people have gotten stuck into F45 and they've come in and see me. They're doing 4 or 5 sessions a week. They're smashing themselves at F45. Often they're quite hungry because of all of the training that they're doing, but their non-exercise activity hasn't changed and they've got a desk job and they might only be doing 2 to 3,000 steps a day or something like that. And they come in and they're like, I'm always hungry because I'm doing all this F45 and the scale isn't moving.
Mhm. Yeah.
Can
And
you speak to that and why it's often a better idea to focus on your non-exercise activity, do some exercise and some resistance training, but not too much?
yeah, absolutely. And like that, given that example of F45, whatever it is, they're probably burning less than they potentially could have been if it was more intentional instead of just overdoing it. You mentioned their appetite's probably much higher, they're way more fatigued. So naturally, their non-exercise thermogenesis could actually drop throughout the day. So non-intentional exercise could drop because they're so fatigued. So if, for example, if you're in a maintenance or a surplus and your training is really intentional and you're managing your fatigue really well, you could actually be fidgeting way more throughout the day. You could be way more at high energy. You could be going, oh, let's go for a coffee. Oh, let's go for a little walk. You're not even like thinking about it as intentional, but you're just naturally moving way more throughout the day because you got no fatigue. You got plenty of energy coming in, and you're just feeling much better and high energy throughout the day. And that does burn much more energy throughout the day than you would notice. And you don't notice it because it's not intentional.
Mm.
So examples of kind of making it unintentional somewhat is kind of like taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It could be, I don't know, maybe every time you go for you're having a conversation on the phone with a client, you just walk around the office or something instead of sitting down. It could be, and this example actually kind of works well, is instead of going to the gym, if you go to a general gym, you go to a gym, instead of bringing a drink bottle, you walk to the bubblers and back to have a sip of water. And like after every set, you're going for a sip. You're probably gonna add another 1,000 steps or even more. And those things kind of like show that you can really increase your activity throughout the day, and it becomes like kind of unintentional at the end. Like when I work at the hospital, like we got a 9 floor story tower where I do like mine, and at the top, level 9. And I don't even think about it. I just do the stairs. Elevators not even like a thing in my mind anymore. I just do the steps, and it's kind of just unintentional at the end. Like I just naturally just do it and don't even think about it now. And that's the kind of a lot of elevation and a lot of steps I'm getting, and I just don't notice it. And those things are way more like not only way less fatiguing than going for, I don't know, an extra hour walk after a big long day and a big gym session, or going for an extra run because you feel like you need to. Those things kind of help increase your activity with the non-activity energy thermogenesis. Can you think of any more, Andrew, that I didn't mention?
Oh, you've absolutely nailed it there. And I'll use myself as an example here. I live and work in the same suburb, so I walk to work. And then my work as well, I'm on my feet most of the day. I'm lifting things, walking around, moving, fidgeting. I'm someone that's got a lot of energy and I fidget a lot. So even my sort of calorie maintenance is roughly around 3,500 calories. But for me to bulk, you would probably say, all right, you could probably add maybe 300 or 500 calories on top of that, and I'd most likely bulk. But that doesn't happen for me because if I add more calories in, typically my non-exercise activity goes up considerably. I start to fidget more, I move more, and I normally have to go about 1,000 calories above my maintenance to bulk because I just offset that with so much non-exercise activity.
Mhm.
So
And
a lot of people as well come in and they think that running or cycling or whatever it is the secret to losing weight. And sometimes they hate that stuff and they much prefer walking. And the way I often sort of break it down for them, you could walk for 20 minutes or run for roughly 10 minutes, depending on intensity, and probably burn a similar amount of calories. So you're burning calories at a roughly the same amount of calories in roughly half the time. Now, you could do both, or if someone really hates running and they get through 4 to 6 weeks of running and then all of a sudden they're like, nah, I give up, I'm over this. Was the walking a better option? Probably.
yeah. And I guess when you're looking at the most optimal thing to do for weight loss in terms of activity. So, and I'll look at this as a diet perspective, but also just kind of the topics we spoke about. We'll start with diet just because it's kind of my expertise. I guess when you look about the protein part of things, and yes, it does burn 20, 30%. It also helps with satiation and kind of fills you up more as well, and also supports recovery and kind of helps get your protein intake through the day. So, obviously, throughout diet, you want your protein to be controlled. And I would want it to be the same if you're a weight loss or weight gain. That shouldn't change. Your lean muscle mass will obviously increase a little bit as you kind of grow and adapt to the gym, but you can slowly increase it over time with weight. But however, it's if your weight's within the similar kind of range, your protein should be fixed and should be consistently the same. And then you just kind of manage it throughout the carbohydrates and fats to drop the energy. So you're kind of offsetting that energy balance through your other macronutrients. And we've talked about this, and we can probably do another podcast on way more detail on macronutrients and percentages and things like that. And it's probably worth its own podcast in itself. I'll limit the information on that there. So noting that's kind of controlling also your TDEE, but also then you can talk about maybe some intentional exercise. So like you said, a 30-minute walk instead of trying to get a 90-minute walk daily. Not only is that less sustainable, but also way more fatiguing. And how do you have time for that if you're a busy job and other things going on? So make it a 30-minute walk. And it couldn't be it doesn't have to be every day. It's kind of like a total for the week. You have a total, like you have a energy budget for the week total. And you got an energy that you kind of have to, I don't think you should try and focus on burning that much throughout the week, but think of a budget you have for the week of energy. Okay, so for the week, I'm going to do 4 walks at 30 minutes. Sweet. I think that's kind of achievable for most people. If it's not, you can obviously change that. And you're not trying to focus on 90 minutes every single day. Super fatiguing. And you're going to focus on 3 to 4 gym sessions that week as well. And they're going to be, like we said, not burning a lot, but they're way more intentional and you're way less fatiguing. And you're really focusing on performance and kind of either maintain the muscle you've got, you're trying to gain a bit more muscle and kind of whatever you're training for tennis or you're trying to focus on speed and agility, that's a time where you're real specific with what you want to train. And it's not just about burning calories. And then the rest of it, I think, should come from things you do throughout the day. You take the train to work instead of driving, and you're walking to the train station, you're on the train, then you hop off the train, you're walking to work, and then you're on the phone most of the time at work. So you just do laps around the office on your phone. And then maybe there's a bubbler at work, so you don't take your drink bottle, and then you have to go to bubbler up and back to get water. Those things kind of really help you just kind of burn throughout the day. Your total energy expenditure kind of increases, but you're also kind of managing your fatigue, and you're also kind of focusing on things that are actually way more long term and sustainable instead of just trying to like burn the candle at both ends. And you just kind of like, okay, I'm going to burn as much as possible. Doesn't matter what it takes. I'm just going to do it, and it's not going to be calculated. I got unlimited. My fatigue doesn't matter. I'll sleep when I'm dead. And like sleep's a whole another thing on top of this. It doesn't obviously don't burn much during sleep, but it kind of just refuels the tank and really kind of gets the fatigue management down. And then you can kind of do it all again. It's kind of managing the fatigue levels. You can continue doing it week to week.
Absolutely. And if you're someone that does a decent amount of exercise at a sporting level and you wanted to increase the amount of calories burnt each day, you probably don't want to be going out running and cycling every single day when you want to perform on the weekend or perform during the week at your sport. And this is one of the other reasons why I don't do a lot of structured running, cycling, these type of things during the week, the day before I'm playing tennis or golf or something like that, because I want to be right and ready for that sport. I don't want to be completely gassed for the sport that I'm about to play. So that's why I focus more on my non-exercise activity, and mainly that is just fidgeting, walking, moving around all day at work, these type of things. That allows me to not feel fatigued, but it also keeps my total energy that I burnt each day quite high. So it's just simple little things and simple hacks. And like even in Sydney, because a lot of people do travel to work on train, bus, etc. Little hack that I often use is just get off the train station or the bus stop or train station before work, and then you have to walk from there to work, and all of a sudden you build that into your daily routine and it's a habit, or walk up to the next bus stop and get on the bus there instead of getting on the bus right out the front of your house. So it's like we've discussed so many times, it's all about building these habits over and over and over again. And this is the reason why I really think walking is the most underrated thing you could do for fat loss, because it's free. You can just walk outside. You can walk at your home as well if you have a treadmill. I've got a walking pad treadmill here at home. They're about 250 to 300 bucks online. They don't take up much space. You can slide them under a couch. I often watch the football in winter when there's pretty ordinary weather outside. I'll watch the footy, put it on next to my couch, and I'll watch the football. And I don't even think about it because I'm watching the football anyway. And all of a sudden, I've done two, three, four, 5,000 steps, depending on how long I stay on there. And it's a really good option if people work from home as well as a walking pad treadmill. Don't have to spend the whole day on there, but you could go for a walk in the morning, get a coffee, come back, you've done 2,000 steps. Then mid-morning, you jump on it, do 2,000 steps while you're in a meeting or something like that. And then do another couple in the afternoon, and then go to get some food from the shops in the afternoon. All of a sudden, you've got 8 to 10,000. You haven't really tried at all, and your non-exercise activity goes through the roof. And you're consistent with that every single day, and then all of a sudden the magic's happening because you're focusing on your nutrition, you're doing a couple of lifting sessions a week, and your non-exercise activity is high every day. And then you jump on the scale and you're like, oh, wow, there it is. It's starting to move in the right direction.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's why even stat trackers can be really good and debatable on which one's the most accurate. Whatever you're using, if as long as it's consistent, it doesn't really matter how accurate it is. And if I was going to do a weight loss phase, I would a train my like resistance training would be exact same. I wouldn't change a thing. That'd be intentional. It'd be just trying to get stronger as possible. It'd be managing my load throughout the weeks and months. But then I'll just kind of track my steps. I just do it on my phone. I have my phone on me all the time. I don't like the feeling of a watch on my arm. So, and it's not like I said, like, it doesn't matter if it's not that accurate, but it's consistent to every single day. As long as your phone's on you, it tracks your steps, and I'll just kind of track the days, but also the weeks of how much steps I'm getting in, and like, and that's one variable you can control. Is like, okay, how many steps I get? Okay, I was on average 10K a day. Okay, so that's pretty good. But what else could I do in the day to kind of add another 2,000, 3,000 steps? And you're just doing that as like a variable, kind of controlling or like measuring your progress. Also, is kind of like just tracking your steps. And obviously, it's different if you're going for a run and you're tracking those steps, like that's different. But if it's just from going to work, like my step count, just going to work in a day and then going to gym after, I get the 10 to 12,000 steps in that day. And none of that's intentional at all, other than the gym, I guess. But I'm not intentionally doing steps at the gym. I don't go on the step or the treadmill at all. It's just going there to do weights. So those steps are all just from walking to the train station, walking around work, seeing patients, whatever it is, all those things kind of add up. And I take the steps instead of walking, instead of that elevator. Those things kind of all add up. And you can just measure that as well throughout the day.
And it's a little bit easy for people that have jobs like you and I, where we are on our feet all day, or someone's a tradie or something like that. So you have to be a little bit more intentional with your steps and your non-exercise activity if you do have a job that is sitting at a desk or working from home and you're sitting most of the day. So you need to be a little bit more mindful of getting them in,
Yeah.
if you're sitting down all day and it's very sedentary. But there are really simple hacks out there that you can use to try and increase it. And think about them like movement snacks. I often mention that to clients, especially physio clients that are, say, coming back from injury or something like that. Movement snacks, rather than going and getting something from the fridge, go for a walk or jump on the walking pad treadmill or whatever it is. So, movement snacks during the day is a really powerful tool. Is there anything else that you wanted to get across to the audience about TDEE, or even just how to lose weight, and to use any other analogies or anything else you wanted to get across to the audience?
I guess not to make it complicated, and I think we've kind of made it well simplified enough for people to kind of apply some strategies. Is this kind of this focus on what's the easiest thing for you to add in the day because it's you have to do it long term. This is a thing that's kind of like you're changing your identity a little bit to add these into your day. It's you're someone that takes the stairs instead of the elevator. You're someone that gets to 10,000 steps a day consistently every day. You're changing part of your identity to make that happen. So you got to make sure that's something that's not well, you don't hate it, number one, but you probably should actually enjoy it, or it should be easy as possible for you. So things like the stepper that you mentioned that you have at home, Andrew, when if you're working at home and you've got a lot of client meetings on, I best believe like if you're walking on that, as long as it's not a video one and you don't mind them seeing you walk on a stepper, but if it's on the phone or even if it's Zoom, I could do it right now on the Zoom right now, and Andrew wouldn't mind. Like those things kind of you don't even notice you're doing the steps. You're focusing on the conversation on your phone. You don't even notice you've done 3,000 steps. Those things are actually so easy for people to do. And it's like it's a barriers that people come up with that aren't actually barriers once you kind of look into what would actually take for you to get those steps in. And it could be done anyway. If it's raining, you still can do it. So I think
Yeah.
it's really looking at things that are easy as possible for you to do.
Yeah, I hear that excuse all the time. Oh, it was raining. I couldn't get my steps in. I'm like, well, umbrellas exist, rain jackets exist, gumboots exist. It's okay to go outside when it's raining. People will come up with any excuse to not do it, especially early days. And I've even used this really simple one as a tool for them to increase their walking. As soon as someone calls you and you're at home, whether because most people talk to their family members, their mum, their dad, their brother, their partner, or something once a day, twice a day, maybe. As soon as you get a call, walk, go outside, take the call on a walk. And you won't even realize, as you mentioned before, you won't even realize that you've done the steps and you've done a lap of the block on the phone, as opposed to lying on the couch on the phone. You're doing exactly the same thing. And usually you'll probably be more engaged if you're walking anyway, because you're not distracted and you're moving. You're not tempted to get on your phone while you're speaking to someone and you got them on loudspeaker and then you get on Instagram or something like that. If you're walking and doing it and got headphones in, you're probably not going to be tempted and you're going to be a little bit more present. So that's another great tool.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a bonus having the mental health also benefit. Going out and get some sun in nature. It's just a benefit
Exactly.
of that thing. And like talking on the phone, walking past, seeing a dog, all those things is kind of naturally like bring some happiness into your day. And after some people, it's if you have a stressful day at work, sometimes that's the highlight of your day is going for a walk and talking to a loved one on the phone. And it doesn't have to be like something crazy. And you're actually going to thank yourself for it. I think people also get stuck in the loop of doing the same thing every day. And especially in the tough, stressful days, it's really hard to kind of break from that. So kind of changing things up can actually be a massive positive, regardless of weight and weight change or weight loss.
Yeah, completely agree, mate. You've done a great job of breaking it all down. And we will do some social media posts in the next week around this, around TDEE and how to find that calorie deficit so you can lose the weight and the fat that you want long term. Thanks for your time. That was great. And we'll do it again soon, probably in 2 weeks because I'm off to Japan tomorrow, mate. So I'll
Tough.
be out of action for 10 days.
I feel like, man.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. As usual, guys, stay strong.